through because this is recorded, I'm going to just go through the little preamble so that if somebody pulled it up and looked later, they'll see what the full thing. So, good morning and welcome. This is a meeting of the Outreach and Community Engagement Standing Committee, which is the subgroup of the Community Advisory Board, otherwise referred to as CAB. Here are some rules of engagement for our meeting this morning. For those in the public, when not speaking, please keep your Zoom status on mute to minimize the potential for background noise. For participants calling in on a cell phone, you can use *6 to mute and *6 to unmute your phone. We'll hear comments first from the board and then from the public by raising your hand, which can be done at the foot of the Zoom screen under reactions. The purpose of the OCEC committee is to assist the greater CAB in gathering and providing information pertaining to the county's efforts in criminal justice reinvestment. To that end, some of our responsibilities are to identify outreach methods to engage the community regarding initiatives related to public safety realignment, to improve public access to information regarding realignment, and to provide membership cultivation and succession planning for the greater CAB, to help facilitate the CAB's ambassador program, and lastly, to organize the annual new member orientation. We're grateful to those that are members of this committee and very much appreciate your time and commitment. So let's get started with our agenda, and that would be introductions. And I guess my question, Nicole, to you is, do you facilitate the introductions or do I?
I normally go ahead and do it for you so that
Okay,
we
good.
can, I mean, we're a small group, but if we weren't, it's just helpful.
Yes, that's helpful.
If that's okay with you, that would be
I like that.
Okay. So if roll call introduction could be as simple as you just announcing your name. It really is just to say that you're present and that we meet quorum, but you can also introduce yourself in a, longer version of that.
Okay.
So I'll start with you, Scott.
Okay, so my name is Scott Parsons, chair this committee, am a member of the CAB and a resident of Moraga.
Perfect. Lanita.
Good morning, everyone. I am Lanita Mims, a member of CAB and also a resident of Oakley.
Mark.
Mark Thomas, CAB member, also in East County. I live in Oakley also.
Oh, you guys are neighbors. Crawford. And now introducing people that are outside of the committee membership. And usually the priority is other members of CAB, in this case Crawford, and then the public or staff and public. Crawford, did you want to introduce yourself?
He's muted.
I'm sorry, Crawford
go.
Carpenter. And I'll leave this sucker on. Crawford Carpenter, CAB member. Jesus.
And Monique.
I am Monique Tate, program coordinator with Office of Reentry and Justice, and I'm happy to be here.
And I am Nicole Popchek, and also with the Office of Reentry and Justice. So that's it.
All right, so that's the introductions of our group. And I see on the agenda, this is where we would take any announcements, correct? If there were any?
Yes.
Do we have any announcements? Well, we'll just move right on into number 2 on the agenda, and that's a public comment on any item under the jurisdiction of the Community Advisory Board and not on this agenda. And I don't think we have any community members yet, right, on this meeting?
No, but I think that if this would also apply for members that are not members of this subcommittee, if they had something that they wanted to discuss that's not on the agenda. So I guess that'd be, in this case, Crawford or.
Okay. Not seeing any interest in comment at this point on the agenda. We would move on to approval of the minutes from our May 17th OCEC subcommittee meeting, which were in the packet. I guess you normally post those, right? So people could look at them real quickly if they wish. All right. Is there anyone that would like more time to look at the minutes? Not seeing a hand. I think then we need a motion to accept the minutes from our May 17th meeting. Is there someone that would like to provide the motion?
Yes, I will move that we accept the meetings from the last meeting.
All right, and do we have a second?
I'll second it. It's Lanita.
Juanita, thank you for a second. This is when we would be open to discussion on those minutes. Is there any discussion as it relates to them, either by a board member or someone from the public that has joined us? Not hearing any desire for discussion on this item. I guess we can go for a vote.
Yep, I'll go ahead and do a roll call vote. Scott,
Yes?
Mark,
Yes,
Lanita.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
All right, we'll dive right into the rest of the agenda. So there's number 4, which says discuss subcommittee member roles and duties. Excuse me, and there's also a standing agenda item for membership status, and that has attachment to page 7. We can go to that now for the purpose of both of these. And I probably would have made it almost like one item, one agenda item, realizing that we're using the same source document. But there it is right in front of us on the screen. So to update this, and are you able to do that, Nicole? Update it in its state right now?
Yeah, I can. Let me pull that up. I didn't have plans to, because that's actually the
That's
attachment
okay.
for the next agenda item, but it's essentially recorded here as well.
Oh, you know
But I
what?
can just make note of it, because I think it's just one area that you're looking to identify a support for here.
So, yeah, and you know, it can be done later. It doesn't have to be done now, but there were just a few items that, well, the first one that I could see is that under number 2 of the full cab body, Crawford Carpenter has given up the role of chair with OCEC, and this document indicates that he's still the chair, which, you know, you can have it, Crawford, if you.
No, thank you.
Okay.
No, thank you.
Okay, so that he probably should have that erased by his name then. The other thing that I noticed for discussion, and I'm not sure exactly where we are yet, and maybe, you know, staff have more information on this, but we have 3 great alternates that have come aboard. None of those that I can see have chose one of the subcommittees to be a member of. And do we have any information to add to that at this point?
To my knowledge, that none of them have selected a subcommittee just yet, but maybe Monique can clarify.
Actually, that is correct. They have not decided which subcommittee they'd like to be a part of. They were invited to attend the subcommittees to get a feel of how it operates. But at this time, they have not decided. And I think, yes, at this time, they have not decided. But Scott, do you see the document that's on the screen where
do.
we've updated it?
Yes.
Okay, because I know I updated you as the new chair. And then I just want to make sure that you guys see the updated membership at a glance document.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you. And by the way, also thank you, Monique, in Nicole's absence of putting up with me and answering all my questions that I have.
Not a problem at all. Not a problem.
Prior to today. But I do see it up there. And I guess before we go past the alternates and their assignments, what does that look like in terms of how they end up in one of our committees? Is that done at the main CAB meeting?
Only if it's a chair. So the chairs, if you're appointing a new chair to a subcommittee, that would be done at the full CAB. But if it's just a member, whether it ends up being the vice chair, recorder, or just a voting member, they just need to tell us, ORJ, and then we put them on the calendar invite and give them the information to join, and they start joining.
Okay, great.
So our recommendation was for them to join the June meetings to get a sense. And it appears that unfortunately didn't happen, but they also have other ways to, whether it's reviewing a past recording or talking to the chair of each subcommittee to get a sense of what it entails. There's other ways that we can help them decide.
Okay.
So we're working on that.
We'll let that natural course occur then.
Right. Ideally, next month would be when they would be starting to attend their first meetings.
Okay, great. And then we can, because I think we're all eager to see them make a choice in the subcommittee. So, so the other thing that I noticed about this document is that under outreach and community engagement, there is not a recorder as of yet. And I just wanted to raise that issue while we were looking at this to see if anyone wanted to take that role. Now, Nakenya is not here, and I certainly wouldn't want to speak for her in her absence. But I don't know, Mark, obviously you have a job on this committee, and that's the vice chair, and that's to run the meeting and take care of business in my absence. So it's probably not a good idea to have a vice chair also be a recorder. And I don't know, Lenita, your feelings about this, if you had an interest or if you wanted to pass on the recorder position, or if you'd even been briefed yet on what it requires.
So I am not able to be the recorder because our meetings are during my work day. I have to actually work and be in this meeting at the same time. So I don't want to do the disservice of a recorder if I miss something.
Absolutely.
So I'm not able.
Well, listen, I'm pleased that you're here and attending, even though you have two balls in the air, maybe. So we wouldn't want to make it more complex.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I know that, Monique, you and I talked about this. We'd love to have somebody that could assist with notes that were passed on. Right now, it doesn't appear that we do. Are we going to be able to use the existing model of one of you completing the minutes for approval without a recorder?
The minutes is not, just to clarify, I don't use your report out to inform my minutes. On our end, it's really to inform the highlights that that you as the chair will be reporting out to the full body at the general meeting on a monthly basis. So it could just be, highlights of the work that the group is doing.
Okay.
encourage it to be physical report out that's attached so that the other members and the other subcommittees can see it. But if it needs to be verbal, I think we can take it back to our leadership to see if that in the interim, that would be sufficient, just so that you're not having to do an additional report out. But you'd still, want to take some notes to be able to know what action, especially if we're taking actions to the pool cab, which I will say this subcommittee does frequently, more than others. That would want to be clear on what that, and I can recap it at the end of the meeting as well, which I have been doing. But those are the things that you're recording is what the work that you're doing, next steps, and then what action you're asking of the full body.
And if I
Okay.
could interject, Scott,
Yes.
and please know that we at ORJ are here to support you. So please don't feel like in the interim that it's going to be a heavy lift for you, because we're here to support you until that position is filled.
Okay. And
Work
I'm
with you.
sure offline from a formal meeting, if I had a question about that, I can reach out to the two of you and find out what that looks like.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. So those were the only items that I had. Is there anyone else from the committee that sees some adjustments that could be made to this? Okay, so I guess then, not seeing any, we can move on to the next agenda item for our meeting. And I'll note too, it indicates in the agenda, discuss applications for new membership to be considered for nomination by full body. We have no applications at this time to discuss. So I'm just going to move on to number 6, unless
I did
somebody-
have one call out for that. Although we don't have any applications to review, we do have a vacancy for a voting member. One vacancy. And so I don't know, with Crawford here, maybe we can just take a moment to discuss if that is what has been discussed offline, is appointing one of the alternate members to this vacancy, either in July or August, because the next appointment approval is in the September CCP, so we have some time. But the latest that we would want to do it at the full body would be August. So the question that staff has is whether or not this group would inform priority to Crawford, or if Crawford as the chair would decide on his own. And with Crawford here, I'm putting him somewhat on the spot. But just that we have this item here, I feel like it would be a good discussion, a quick discussion to have as far as, how we select which alternate members, since they all onboarded on the same time. And happy to share some recommendations that we have.
If I could just comment, then thank you. And Mr. Chair Scott, new chair. Is there a way maybe for this group, this body, to look at these candidates? For example, who shows up to meetings? Who represents, be it West, Central, or East County? While West County is our priority, yes, it is our priority. What if our people in West County aren't participating now? So if you aren't participating now, you're kind of sending us a message of what would happen once you get on the board. I look at Lenita, I look at Mark, who are currently working. Well, by George, they managed to get here. Hint, hint. So, I think it would be interesting just to have a brief discussion, or to get a recommendation, from this group, so that I believe so that we are in concert with our bylaws as to how we should approach it. I don't mind recommending someone, but, and there's a big but, I would love to have input from this group, Mark, Lenita, and Scott, as to maybe what the thought process should be.
All right, Mark, did you have any comments on that that you would like to make?
Not at this time.
Okay, and Lanita?
I do. I would I would like to see Michelle Carter be asked or appointed. And the reason I say that is because she is a post person of incarceration, and she would give us a little bit closer to what it actually is needed in what we're doing. I think that Reverend Van Hook is a awesome leader, but I know he has a very busy schedule. And I think that the other guy, the young man, Joel, would also be great, but he also is teaching during the day. So I think that from my perspective and for my reasons for being a part of the CAB is to bring us closer to the front line. And I believe that Michelle has served in the front line and on the front line. And I think that her expertise and her knowledge would be very, very helpful to what we're trying to do. And that's if she were to accept, because I have no idea, but that's my vote.
So
Thank you for that input. That's helpful. Thank you, Lanita.
that
You're
is
welcome.
helpful. And I guess, Crawford, to your point, since we are discussing this, and this is very important stuff, has Michelle been able to attend, have an attendance record that meets that standard or that threshold that you were hoping for?
Well, maybe one little bit of information, just as Lanita and Scott, the two of you, as well as Terry, when we had our CAB chats, our CAB talks, the three of you went out of your way to meet with us. You know, Lanita, you couldn't meet at the actual Zoom call, but by George, you reached back out to me and we got together. We got together with everybody. So kudos to the three of you. We have tried to set up, and in fact, Michael and I have been working on another CAB chat or talk with the three individuals here, and only one of the individuals got back to me, and that individual had a last minute difficulty, but then came right back to me, let's get another date. So those are messages. I'm just saying those are kind of messages that people send. And thank you. I'm just saying your comments are very helpful.
So I guess I, look at all three as strong candidates. From my view on this, I was impressed with all three, and I felt blessed that we had their interests. So Nicole, I guess I'm, as a point of order, are you hoping we would create a motion and try to move a person from the alternate position to a regular voting member of the board today in this session, or?
So this is somewhat of a unique circumstance because they're already on the board. If you look at it from the perspective that they're alternate members already.
Okay.
So I would go as far as to say the assumption is if you're coming on as an alternate member, you are already accepting the possibility of being a voting member.
That's what I thought.
And you're just kind of in queue waiting for the opportunity. That's how I look at it. So we've never made a motion at this subcommittee to appoint an alternate. It's always been done by the chair at the full body. And it's somewhat done by seniority based on who applied first. It just happens to be that Michelle did apply first. So that somewhat is aligned with what I'm hearing as far as the consensus. But yeah, there hasn't been much debate about which one. It was just based on seniority. So we don't really have a process if there's 3 available. And the one that has seniority maybe is sharing some concerns with the body as far as availability. We haven't really run into that issue before. So this would be something I don't think you need to make a motion here for, because they're already on the board. And so you would need to make a nomination at the full body regardless. Just like we made a nomination for Lenita, made a nomination for Scott and Terry. So the nomination can come from any 3 of you, since you guys already have somewhat of a person in mind. And then it would be, obviously accepted by Michelle or whoever you decide, and then, a motion and then a second. That's how it would work out. Does that make sense? I see Lenita, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I have a question. So is it possible to go back to the drawing board and do some outreach for the seat, or would we need to appoint one of those 3 persons to the seat?
Priority in our operating guidelines or bylaws, it's the priority is given to alternates. I've never seen anyone go outside and outreach if we already have alternates in the queue before. So that is, I think we should outreach regardless, because as Crawford would tell you, that he wasn't an alternate member for very long. So,
Okay.
right, we'll continue the encouraging outreach regardless, because some people are terming out this year. But and I think that came up at the CCP meeting, right? Was why not do it now at, what was it, June 3rd meeting? Why not do it now? And it was because unfortunately that we didn't have that vacancy at the time that we posted the staff report.
Right.
So priority is usually given to the alternates, and then order of priority, it would be whoever applied first.
Okay.
Now, that may not
Thank
always
you.
be the preferred person to appoint, but there's nothing saying that you can't nominate someone else. It's just some people might want an explanation of why not the person who applied first.
Mhm.
And this body would just need to be prepared to speak to that.
Well, on that point, I view all 3 as great candidates. If a seniority element exists by when they applied, and you say Michelle Carter has that, then would it be in the regular CAB meeting that this decision would be made?
Right, we would put an agenda item, which we ORJ already kind of had that plan to discuss in the planning
Yeah.
meeting, was that this would be an agenda item for July 14th general meeting, that you would appoint, however we draft that language, an alternate member to a voting member seat. And we wouldn't be identifying in that agenda item who it is, because that would be discussion for the full body. So.
Okay, and you say it's not a motion by this group then that would move?
It'd be a motion by anyone in the full body, and it could be someone from this group, since you guys already have kind of an idea of who you'd like to see in that seat. You're welcome to make that first motion.
Okay, and that would be that then this person would be nominated to go before the voting the full CAB, for filling of that vacant position.
Right, so we'd be nominated for that, and then come September 16th, they would be officially appointed as a voting member on the 16th of September by the CCP.
So Lenita, you, I think, very well expressed your thoughts around this. Did you want to make a motion that we would vote on here in terms of who would go forward as our, who we'd like to see nominated for the vacant position?
Sure, I would love to.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think that there is a need to do a motion here.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm saying, is that because they're already on the body.
Oh, I misunderstood you then. I'm sorry.
But I don't know. I mean, this is kind of uncharted territory, because we've never had more than one alternate that we could appoint. It's usually only one. So Actually, that's not true. We've had situations where it's just done by seniority. So I guess the question is, if you're making a decision to do it based off of something other than seniority, then maybe a motion here would need to be made.
I have a question or a comment. I'm thinking that it, obviously it could be a motion and voted upon, but it could also be a consensus, as you stated earlier, Nicole, that they can just take it to the full body as a consensus among the group, that they all have agreed that Michelle Carter, based on past practice, she applied first, and they agreed that she would be the one appointed to the vacancy.
Right.
I think it could go either way.
Yeah, I think there just needs to be a process if it's other than seniority that we have not developed.
Mhm,
If it's based off of other than seniority, I could just see some challenges with that.
mhm.
People wondering, we just voted for these people to be on the board. So we liked their background enough to put them as an alternate, right? And if you're choosing a candidate to nominate them other than seniority, I could just see some people being upset by that.
Mhm.
So I just think that we need to have a process or at least an explanation of why it wouldn't be by seniority. But yeah, I think we could do either consensus or you guys could vote that you're making a motion based off of seniority. If that's what you're basing if you're basing it off of seniority, then yeah, that would be what the motion would be. Otherwise, we would need to state in the motion why, some explanation.
Right. And it just so happens that it is somewhat based on seniority this
Yes.
time
Yes,
because Michelle applied first.
correct.
Right, and there's no evidence being presented that pushes one of these candidates out in front of the other for any other reason. I think all three.
They just onboarded on 6/3, so we haven't really
Yeah.
given them the time to really participate too much. So we
Well-
just have to keep that in mind too.
You know,
Do we,
And this
Go
is a full body vote, so you guys know information that the other members don't. So,
Mhm.
right.
Oh, might you put in your motion for your committee, if it's possible, that the seniority, which makes
Mhm.
sense, number one. Then
Mhm.
number two, the comment by Lenita, I think you nailed it. And then the third about she's had experience in the justice system. And then finally, we did not turn a deaf ear to West County. However, we want to follow these two main ingredients, which would possibly be seniority and direct exposure with the justice system. And then that automatically puts the other two in the queue on seniority for the next vacancy that would occur.
so Nicole, you used the term uncharted. So if it's uncharted for you, you know it's really uncharted for me.
Well, that's just right. You're making a nomination, but
Yeah.
you could bring this nomination, someone could say, no, I want someone else.
So I am comfortable, unless there's a problem with order, that Lenita makes a motion that we would recommend Michelle Carter be, taken before the full cab for approval for the vacancy. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Lenita, why don't you?
Okay.
Go ahead and we'll see if we can get a second.
So I would like to recommend that the OCEC refer Michelle Carter to the seat that's available on the cab due to seniority and personal experience, because I think she would be the greater fit.
So there it is. That's a clear motion. And do we have amongst the OCEC, do we have a second for that?
Yes, Mark Thomas, I second.
Great. So we have a motion, we have a second, and is there any additional discussion that should occur either by a board member, staff, or the public on this motion? None being heard, I think you can go ahead and
Sure.
take the count.
Scott,
Yes.
Lenita,
Yes.
Mark.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes unanimously.
Good.
Thank you for your patience with me through that.
Oh,
Well,
my
and
gosh,
can I ask one more question really quickly?
Yes.
Because I don't remember if I heard this or not. But all three of them were invited to all of the committee meetings, so they were invited to the meeting today.
Yes, I provided links to all of the meetings
Okay.
for June before I left
Thank you.
vacation, so they had access to all the June meetings. They were encouraged.
Okay.
I mean, now they, for whatever reason, they weren't able to. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, may I make just one comment on that, if this will help? Michelle Carter sent an email because we're working with her on something. She is
Mhm.
currently in training at a local prison, which does not allow her email or cell phone contact from
Yep.
8 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon for a certain period of time. So she will be difficult to get in touch with. And then once her training's over, I believe she'll be in a different position. Just to share that, if that enlightens you as to why she is not here today.
Okay. Thank you, Crawford, for that.
Yeah, thank you. And
I just want to recap the motion because well, Lenita made a motion to present Michelle Carter as a candidate to the full body for the vacant voting member seat due to seniority and experience with the criminal justice system.
I think that's,
Yeah. Okay.
is that good, Lenita?
Yeah, because they need to vote on it as well.
Yes.
Okay. Thank
All
you.
right. So there was a very important item that I almost skipped over there. So thank you, Nicole, for keeping me directed.
No
So
worries.
number 6 in our agenda, review updated proposed CAB ambassador program assignments and further define support needed. And there's reference to attachment 3, which is page 8 and 9 of, and I see it now in front of us. Thank you for putting it up there. So on the assignments, as we see here, I guess the only question I had, and it comes back to the earlier one about our alternates, one who may not be an alternate much longer, but nevertheless, it's all good. And I noticed that Reverend Julius Van Hook had responded and said that he was interested in probation, and Supervisor Goya. I see it's still to be determined for the other two in terms of.
So I actually have an update for that because we did, as you may know, I was out for 2 weeks and we had a survey and I did see a response from Michelle. So Monique, if you want, I can share my screen that shows a more current version of this. We did not receive preferences from Joel just yet, but we did receive Michelle's preference.
Oh, great.
So let me pull that up. Okay. I get through all my documents here. Okay.
That's good that you have that.
So yeah, so she had public defender and probation. And so the only one we're still waiting on is Joel. And I know he was out of town, at least for the CCP meetings. So I don't know where his access is to this, but ORJ will be following up with him to get his preferences. So this matrix below kind of pans out where everyone's preferences lie. The different departments that are highlighted in yellow is referencing the fact that we only have one CAB member assigned based on everyone's preferences, where we would prefer to have two, a lead and a second. and that would be for the court, the law enforcement agency, which in this case, the city of Concord, and then public defender, which actually, no, that's public defender is good now. I don't know why I still didn't have that highlighted. And then supervisor District 3, which is, I believe, is Burgess.
That's my district. You can sign me up for that.
So that's the question for this group. I know you guys have, you guys have first dibs at seeing what the preferences are. Lainey, I have you signed up for the district attorney and the employment human services department. If you wanted to volunteer for 3, I'm happy to put you down for 3 to do 3 different meetings. But just wanted to highlight that.
Do we know when the meetings are and how often they are?
So this is a one-time meeting that you would be scheduling with your counterpart here. So for instance, for you, you have Ozzy is also signed up for district attorney. That was her first preference as well as yours. And so the way this will work is that once we approve some of the documents that is going to help you guide you, you guys would be scheduling a meeting. We have a contact list for you to schedule a meeting with whoever the contact is to schedule a meeting with this department sometime in October, possibly September. So it's a one-time meeting. I can't remember how long the meeting was. I want to say 30 minutes to an hour. Maybe Crawford, you can speak to how long. I can't remember how long it was.
You're dead on. Most of the meetings went 45 minutes. You're dead
45 minutes.
on, Nicole.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you would work with Ozzy in this case to find what your availability is, what her availability is. And then you would, whoever decides to be the lead, I know in this case, you guys are both leads. So you guys would work out, okay, who's going to really be the lead versus who's going to be kind of the second taking notes. And then the lead would schedule that meeting based on your guys' availability. That person would get back to you and then you guys schedule a meeting. Within that meeting, Ozzy would be the lead or you, again, you guys would decide. The second would be taking some highlights, some notes, highlights to do an external report that you would report back to the full body. Now, some people took a lot more notes than others, but the expectation is it's just kind of the bullet points, high level bullet points are the things that stood out to you that were important and pertinent to CAB. So that's just kind of the setup. I know there's a lot more we're going to talk about as far as, the resources that will help guide you in these meetings. So we have a lead and a second, and you can see for probation, we have 4 people that signed up for probation. So unless you guys want to sign up for a 3rd meeting, my recommendation from staff would be to take this matrix and then bring it to the full body. And we do basically an agenda item to try to work out some of these gaps. Obviously, someone in probation that signed up might need to move over to the court system, possibly the city of Concord, law enforcement agency, maybe public defender is fine. I'll change that. Or Supervisor Burgess. Some of the call-outs, go ahead.
Nicole, is there a possibility at the bottom of this matrix to put one, we've got the 5 districts. I don't know who those are.
Okay.
Put a key or belief
Yeah, I
there.
can.
One equals whoever that is, 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yes, I can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Joel, we're still waiting for his response. Terry and Dale are highlighted in red because there's a quorum issue because their subcommittee is programs and services. There's only 3 individuals on that subcommittee and quorum is 2. So unfortunately, until we get more members on programs and services, which I have full confidence by the time this happens, it'll probably work itself out. But as of right now, Dale and Terry cannot be in a meeting alone together like that because that presents basically a public meeting for programs and services. And the same is true for Terrence. If Nicole Green and Ozzy and him are all 3 to be together, which we don't typically have 3 people go together anyways, that would present a meeting for policy and budget. So
I think your recommendation is a good one, that when we're together with the full cab, all these folks are there, that we kind of get through some of these issues because we have a lot of leads and some and seconds and others and then no interest. And I can guarantee you, though I had an interest in the 2 I put in for, if it helped the overall cab, for me to be moved somewhere, that's really fine. And I think you're right. It'll all work itself out.
It'll work itself out. You have 2 Ls in some places, but less concerned about that. And what we really want is 2 people,
Right.
2 cab members, and then you guys can decide with your partner who will really take the lead and who will really be the second. Less concerned about that because you can see that Crawford's got like two Ls. Again, trying to get 2 people for law enforcement agency, City of Concord specifically. Public defender, we're good because we got Mark and Michelle now at the court system. And then of course, looks like we might have more people than, there's only really a couple areas, but I'm just looking logistically at probation. There's 2 people right there that can be moved into these other yellow areas.
Yeah,
So,
for instance, I'm one of them, and I'd be happy to go to one of those that, like law enforcement, that only has 1 person of interest.
right.
I could certainly be moved when we do the workshop, or it's
Right.
an agenda item and we have discussion on it.
And we are trying to partner people with someone who's done it in last year. That may not always work out that way. We try. But first, obviously, the process is just to get everyone's preferences first. We want to try to accommodate at least everyone getting one of their preferences, right? And then, move people around as needed. And hopefully that it works out that you're with somebody who's done it before.
Right.
But like Monique has mentioned in previous agenda items, ORJ is here to support. We're going to look at some other documents here, but this is pretty much where it stands right now with the matrix of who wants to go where. And unless there's more discussion, or staff's recommendation is to present it as is to the full body in July or August.
Now, may we try to present this to the full body in July?
We can. And I
Yes.
did want to pull up a timeline because we did come up with a timeline for you, and I don't know why I said August, so I apologize.
Okay.
It should be July based on where this goes.
Thank you.
So we're here today looking for approval of the way it is right now to push it over to the full body for discussion. I don't know if it needs to be a motion for that, but you guys can decide. But either way, we need to present that to the full body on July 14th as is. And then talking points agendized at the August. What am I saying here? We would present this timeline as well to the subcommittee, or I'm sorry, the full body specifically, maybe not this entire timeline, but the fact that we need the subcommittees to have on their agenda items, one of their agenda items for August, to have a discussion about talking points and what they should look like. Because it's not the responsibility of outreach solely to decide, it's getting input from all the other members from the other subcommittees. So what this is saying here is that we need them all by August 29th. They need to talk about it in their August meeting, but come August 29th, they need to submit that to ORJ so that we can compile all that information together in time for the September 8th general meeting. You follow me?
Yeah.
Yep.
And then we need to confirm the contact list. We have a list of all the different department heads. So that's nothing that you need to worry about, but more of an internal timeline milestone for us to make sure we have the right contacts for you guys, because we'll be providing you the contact list that you will use to schedule your meetings. And then the request is to schedule your meetings with your assigned department head by September 30th so that your meeting can be held. Doesn't mean it can't happen before September 30th, but let's just say September or October that you have your meeting, and then you report out to the full body your highlighted external report out in the November general meeting or the December general meeting, depending on when. We anticipate some overlap because not everyone was able to schedule their meetings last year in October because of some of the holidays, and so it got pushed over to November. So ideally it'd be great for November, but it could be December report out. Any questions about the timeline?
No, not at this
Make
point.
sense? Okay, so we have a program overview that some of you may have seen. Like, we did want to highlight and have some discussion that makes sure that everyone's on the same page, at least in this committee. Why are we doing this? What is the purpose of this? And this would be has been communicated to you in the email that I sent out to respond to the survey. But it's also copied here on the screen. So I just wanted to open it up to make sure that it's clear. You guys, some of you are seeing this for the first time or new to CAB. And so if it's not clear, we definitely want to make sure that we're communicating the purpose of this.
So this is helpful, and I'm maybe one of those that I'm not totally familiar with this paragraph, but this is something that, when we go into the next subject, would have been something we would have initiated into the outreach packet that Crawford and I were working on. So this is some good language in here. Program overview. Yeah, this is excellent. So is there a way to get this?
Yeah, I can email it to you.
Please do.
I have put it in the email that the survey, so I can forward you this. It's essentially the initial email that I sent out asking for people's preferences. Same overview.
Yeah, okay.
So this is
Nicole, would you be kind enough to send that to me also? Copy me when you
Of
send it.
course. I'm just going to send it to you right now.
Yeah,
Thank
Crawford, and that'll be our next subject matter, but that'll be nice in that packet. That may even be cleaner
Yes.
than, yeah. For our-
That is the overview. If there's something that's not clear in this overview, because we would like to reiterate this overview when we send out all the materials. So people, they may have seen it before, but we want to make sure that people are seeing it again. It's reiterated. So we have that. I also pulled up, and this is where, and please stop me if I'm going too fast, or if you need to have questions. I can't see everyone's hands just now, but this is the email that we sent out last year with all the materials. And I can look at it right now and can tell you that it probably needs to be revised a little bit, but essentially this is what we sent out. You can see the subject line there, basically requesting that you guys schedule your meetings with the department heads. That draft was not supposed to be there. That was supposed to be taken off. I don't even have the right talking points on here either. So don't look at the documents necessarily as this is the document that you're going to copy over into your resources, because we will provide all this for you.
Can you maybe hold up, Nicole, because you probably weren't at the meeting that Kenya was at the previous time, which then led to Scott and I, with recommendations from Kenya, set up a packet with the information that you've got here.
Right.
But we've kind of got it listed in a chronological order. Might we go to that with Scott so you can see what we put together to kind of bits and pieces and other types
Is that
of
in the agenda packet? Is that in the agenda packet? No?
No.
Okay.
No. What we were working on this week, or over the weekend. I can't even remember. We've had so many different meetings, but of late, Crawford and I have compiled a kind of a CAB ambassador guide, and it's in a raw form, but it has 10 steps for a person that's an ambassador. It gives source documents, it gives recommended language, it takes your talking points, Nicole, and it puts it into one package. It's certainly, it's still in draft form, but this is to help a person that has never been an ambassador before feel a level of confidence. And I guess the Kenya document, I'll call it, she raised some very legitimate concerns to how she was uneasy, being an ambassador, and thought that there was more we could do to boost the confidence of a person in that role. So Crawford and I spent quite a bit of time trying to address that, and we'll certainly be sharing it with everyone, right, Crawford, as soon as.
Sure. Is that something that you guys want to work offline and then maybe present in the next meeting here? which is-
Exactly. Maybe if I could, may I chime in, please, Scott,
Sure.
on this?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Of
Oh,
course.
thank you, sir. Okay, here's what Scott and I have done, and we think we're about 85, 90% there. We've got 10, let me go, yes, 10 documents. Let me read you the title of each one. The first document, we call it the Ambassador Guide Table of Contents. The second one, let me make sure I highlight that. That is the Ambassador Program, the Executive Summary, which would be similar to your program summary. That's why both of us would like to see that program summary in conjunction with our executive summary.
Mhm.
The next item is the ambassador assignments, which you have listed here, where we've got which we've shown earlier. Document number 4 for us, let me open this up, let me see. Hold on, I'm looking on my screen. Come on.
Are you sharing?
Document number 4 is the contacts for each of the various positions for our county partners. We've got it, and we put that in a Word document.
Okay.
And then we have an example, which is document 5, our contact letter. These are examples. And then we put together some tips. And what we thought we should do here is just tips for our ambassadors. And really, Scott called these tenets. And we started out with be punctual, polite, professional, personable, engaging. And then we put in, for example, Google the person you are interviewing for their backgrounds, focus on active listening, clearly define why we are here, and prepare some questions, which we've done. And then most important, and this was the big one for Kenya, the 2 interviewers should meet prior to the partner call to lay out their joint approach. That this is crucial for the comfort of new CAB members engaged in the ambassador program. And then most important, we put at the end, don't be negative about any subject, even though you might feel that way. So those are just kind of tips. And again, once we present this to the OCEC standing committee, you may have some other items. Now, let me move quickly here. And then we've got a sample of how you can lay out your points on the talking points, so you have a dialogue with the person you are interviewing. And then we have document 8, which is the notes, for example, that I took from Supervisor Burgess. And then finally, we have the CAB external meeting. We put that together from the notes. And then our last item is a sample CAB thank you email. So that's the packet that Scott and I have been working on. And it really lays out the concerns that, some of the concerns that Kenya had. And then we laid it out, hopefully in an orderly process for those who have to be engaged in the interview. I'm sorry to take up so much of your time, but I thought we should share what we're working on, and we're darn near done.
So were the talking points themselves part of that packet?
Yes,
Okay. And that's that document that outlines, I know this isn't in this is the current format of it being in.
yes.
So is that document, okay.
And they can take those talking points, and what we did is, I think we've got the example of what Jonte and I used. We took the talking points and put them in a conversation with whoever you're going to be talking to, so that you go, each of the individuals in the interview are feeding off the other. And what we determined is, while one of, for example, while Jonte was talking, I would take notes. When I was talking, Jonte would take notes.
Right.
And then when we put this all together, we had a package. And that's what Scott and I have been working on to kind of bring it together.
Okay. Yeah, let's, I don't know if we need to regroup internally. I'm just I'm not able to document notes right now because I'm sharing my screen, but if that's something you want to present next month, I just know that there's certain, like an external meeting report template that people need more. Yours sounds more like a guide, but there's actually some documents that need to do the work that may or may not be included. I'm not sure in that packet. So the external report out, which is a Word document that we have on our end that we can provide, if that's not already
But
part of
that's
the
in the
packet.
packet.
Okay.
Yeah, I think.
And then the actual membership roster, so people know how to contact their partners.
That's in the packet.
It's in the packet. Okay. I did not hear that, so I just wanted to confirm.
Oh, okay.
I think that's it. And you said you had a letter or an email template of some sort? Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Basically, we took all of this information you've got here, but we put it in an order and we called them documents, and we listed from document 1 to document 10. So everybody knows exactly what they would be referring to. And again, we tried to follow, because we had a robust discussion at our last meeting with McKenya, and she had about 4 or 5 points, and we wanted to make sure we put those into that packet.
Okay.
So yes.
Is that something that you feel would be self-explanatory in an email like this? Or would you want to walk the full body through it through a general meeting agenda item?
Ooh.
Go ahead, Scott.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I-
I'm glad you raised that question, because if I've noticed anything coming onto this board and the committee as well, there is so many moving pieces that, and you come in and there's all these little acronyms and abbreviations, and it's a little overwhelming. And to be honest, I didn't even know what the ambassador program. It was kind of like, okay, I know it's coming, I'll learn about it. But I wasn't really sure what that all meant until I kind of started working with Crawford on this. And this is huge. So do we need to have a line item on an agenda and have some training around this? I absolutely think so. So that everyone feels as comfortable as possible. Now, everyone's going to have a chance to give some input too. So yeah, if they see this and they,
I'm just looking at, like, from a logistics standpoint, is timing. So July is when you want to provide the proposed assignments to the full body. So what, August general meeting you thinking? Because I don't think it'd be ready for July 14th, since you guys want to review it again in your July, solidify it in your July meeting.
that's probably,
Maybe the August general meeting.
I mean,
August makes sense, yes, and then
Yeah,
look at Scott can present it, or Scott and I jointly can present it,
yeah,
or Scott and Mark, or Scott and Lenita, but we'll bring everybody up to snuff first in OCEC. That was our goal. We wanted to get this done outside so we don't violate quorum.
Sure.
Then once we get a document, we can bring it to OCEC, and you guys can tear it apart or do whatever you want to do with it. And then we should be in a position to make those corrections and then go to the CAB general board meeting in August. And in effect say, here is your packet.
Right. Okay, that sounds great. Because you're
And
doing
now-
it. So
Yeah, now here's the key. This is just a recommendation. If somebody gets that packet and says, well, document 3, I don't want to quite do it that way, I want to do it another way, well, that's fine. You don't hurt our feelings.
sure.
What we're trying to do is to help those that had expressed when they first got into this, they felt lost.
Right. Well, and I think that, I mean, one document that I think some people were uncomfortable that in itself was the talking points,
Yep.
which is in this agenda packet for today. But again, by no means was the expectation that we're going to go through that and dive into that, but that was just an example of what it looks like. And that's where we were looking for input from the other subcommittee members on what they would like to see. I mean, I don't have it up right now. Maybe you want to share the screen and share the current state of the talking points, Monique.
talking points, yeah.
I think
Now,
a lot of it's
again-
probably going to be the same with the exception of maybe the mental health piece that this body has been very an advocate for within this population. And I just wanted to
Just
specify,
to share
so what?
Yeah, just to share with you, Nicole, we dealt with the talking points. We took last year's talking points, we condensed them so that there was the give and take during the interview and the presentation.
Oh, so
will
you
see
actually
that
tackled the
doc-
talking points.
Pardon?
So you actually tackled the talking points and edited the talking points.
Well, that's what we've done.
Okay.
If you, yeah, again, you haven't seen our packet yet. When you see our packet, you will see that we took last year's talking points and we were able to weave those into a presentation.
Okay.
So that you could literally take my name out of there and take Jonte's name, and you can put Mark Thomas and Lenita Mims, and they've got a way to approach their interview. They
Okay.
can change the words, they can change who does what. What Scott and I tried to do is let's simplify the talking points. We've got them there, but let's see how we can walk through it. Again,
Right.
That's why we called it a guide.
Okay. So I just want to be clear because the talking points are specific subject that this group is advocating for this year, which last year restorative justice was part of it. So I just want to make sure when we say talking points, we're referring to the same document. That's why I was hoping we could get it up on the screen.
Yeah,
Just to make sure that we're.
and you know what we could do, Crawford, is we could take, if I'm, and I'd have to look at all the work that we did because it's kind of a blur at the moment, but we could take this talking points and also, kind of the next document is how you used it in your interview, the one that, we have in the packet. And that way, a person could bridge this to that. And I don't know how you'd miss it, but, we want to make it as easy as possible.
I'm sharing the talking points right now. And so these are, well, the number one is the pillars, and those shouldn't change much because those are, to my understanding, they don't change. That's what you guys, that is your pillars of CAB.
So I guess I had a question about that, if I can. I don't, the meeting has kind of morphed now into the talking points, so I think it's a good time to ask this question, but there they are. Okay, we want to invest in what works. That is true in anything, so I like that. We believe the true justice requires social justice. I guess the one concern I had is there's a lot of words that are used, but there's not a lot of descriptors. Does everyone understand what social justice is? And I'm just thinking as a group, did whoever decided that social justice would be in there, are they defining it the same as the county does? I guess I just had some questions. Where did these come from?
I think it comes back to your operating guidelines and your guys's purpose statement. There's a couple of operating documents that this is coming from. This was not developed this is just a copy and paste from a different document. That's an operating document. So my point, and I think this came up last year, and I think Patrice had said the same, that if this is changing, then that's changing the statement of CAB and the charge of CAB. And so that's a different conversation. Unfortunately, I'm not really prepared to get into right now, but all the other points, like number 2, those are very specific advocacy things that CAB is doing.
Right.
So if you want to change number 1, I would say that we need to regroup internally about that, because that's more just like, hey, FYI, this is where we stand. And if that's different than what, there's some language that needs to be changed, or there's some confusion there, that definitely think we need to regroup internally about that. Because that shouldn't change. This should be the same every year, whether this changes or not. I don't have an opinion about that, but it's just, if it is changing, then there should be a discussion about that, because this is, to me, is more of a statement of something that is already determined to be the mission of CAB.
Okay.
Right.
And that's fine. And that's good. I just, with 3 new members, and I'm new, I don't know how Lenita feels about all of this, but sometimes it's just a lot of stuff. And you kind of wonder, okay, where's it coming from? What does that mean?
Sure. No, I get it.
And that's the only reason I bring, I don't want to change anything, but I do want to, you know, we believe that incarceration should serve as a last resort. That's an interesting statement, and I wondered where that came from and what is meant by it. because-
Unfortunately, I don't know.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
came before my time as well, so I'm not really sure. This
right,
was, I think, done maybe during the retreats, that this is a working document, operating document that the CAB at the time had come up with.
right.
So this is not necessarily coming from the AB 109 language that comes from the CCP's bylaws. I believe this is CAB's take on it. So,
Okay. Well, yeah. Listen, I don't want to change anything.
no, this came up at the retreat, though. This conversation came up at the retreat as well. I remember it coming up as an operating document that might need to be looked at again, but just never happened.
Yeah.
From the time the retreat happened in February to now. But I think where we're wanting to get some clarity is all these other points of areas of advocacy for CAB beyond the pillars would be like the budget, transparency and accountability, the advocacy for the office of our office. I think that's in here. CAB's policy and budget recommendations, which we don't have that kind of fully fleshed out right now. And that's where I'm looking, we're advocating for all the subcommittee members to weigh in on this area here, right here.
Yeah.
And that basically developed the policy brief that we submitted last year, was all these, but these are very high level. I think what Michael had said, that this is the trailer of the movie. These bullet points are the trailer. The policy brief that will be submitted for approval later on is the movie. So this doesn't need to be fleshed out, but these are the areas of interest that you would be, these would be your highlights during that meeting that you're having with your department head. So there wouldn't be so much discussion about the pillars because they already know CAB. So I guess that's my point when you're building the guide. If there's some questions about the pillars, would be a different conversation. You're not going to spend a lot of time on this part in your meeting.
Okay.
Because they should already know who CAB is and or they're already advocating for CAB. So I'm not sure why this became part of the talking points. Maybe if you're talking to a department head that has no familiarity with CAB at all, possibly. At least that's my understanding. You're not spending a lot of time on the pillars, but you are spending a lot of time on talking about budget transparency. And then
Right.
when you get farther into the document, basically what you're advocating for this year, that these members are going to vote on, which are all these bullet points here.
Got it.
And that's the end of the document there.
Okay, well, I didn't know the full intent of why this was put on the agenda exactly, if it was for people to ask questions or to look for clarity. So I guess just for the others on this call, are there any questions about some of this? Or is it just me? I think everyone's.
So it's Lanita. I'm just trying to figure out what is what. So I'm just a little confused, but I'm trying to print the documents off so I can go through them a little thoroughly.
Yeah.
Thoroughlier. That's not a word. Okay. Sorry about that. I need rest.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm still just a little confused, but I'm learning. This is the first time I've seen any of this.
So don't feel bad, Lanita. I think all of us that just came on are drinking out of a fire hose and
Right. Well, and that's why the packet I think is helpful, but really these are the points right here that matter in that meeting. And I'm just a little concerned that a big packet's gonna be very overwhelming.
Okay, I think that the difficulty is, and the hard truth is, what was done last year based on the comments from Kenya, et cetera, it was totally confusing.
Mhm.
And I know I participated in it on a first time. It was confusing. It wasn't in order. We were just sent information. And to Kenya's credit, she said, hey, this stuff, hey, what is it? It didn't pass the mustard in her view.
Right.
As a result, may I share with you, if somebody, is there a way you could give me the screen sharing? I think this would make you feel a little better, Nicole, if you can see this one document that Scott and I have worked on. if you could give me screen share.
You should have the capability.
All right, now how do I do it?
There-
Oh,
there-
hit screen share.
Yeah,
Okay, and now let me hit this document. Do you, can you see it?
not yet. Sometimes there's a delay.
Oh, wait a minute.
There we go.
Share. Can you see this document?
Yes.
Okay, now let me walk you through now and think about the points you were concerned about.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about an intro. What brought you here? Jonte. What brought you here? Crawford.
Right.
And then Jonte starts out and he, wait a minute, can I get rid of this stuff on the side? Oh, wait a minute, maybe I can minimize it.
I
Oh,
don't
there
think
we
you
go.
see it.
Okay, got it.
You're
And
fine.
then Jonte starts with Supervisor Burgess. And we wanted to cover the areas and then look. CAB's policy statement pillars, budget transparency,
Right.
support of CAB's okay, so we've got that. And then Jonte started with, he would like to start by reviewing policy statement and pillars. So he goes over that. Then
Uh-huh.
he turned it over to me.
Okay.
And then we talked, then we talked about, we want a fair and effective justice system. And then here's, our, come on, this thing is
The
too big.
pillars.
Okay. Yeah, and then we walk through the points. And here we invest in what works. Incarceration should be a last resort. I'm just kind of going quickly. And we hoped that we could agree on that. And then we had a question. Based on those pillars, we went back to Supervisor Burgess. And then Jonte took over this second area of focus. Now, do you see the points that you had there, Nicole?
Right.
You talked.
So
We're
yeah.
deep.
I just want to
Pardon?
understand like time, and you got 45 minutes and you still have yet to get to the stuff that they're going to vote on.
That they're going to vote on. What do you?
Right. Those
you
bullet
lost it.
points that talks about restorative justice, that's all about the CAB policy brief. All those
Yep.
bullets are stuff that you're looking to get input for them as far as advocacy.
Okay, well, we talked about this. I mean, it worked. All I'm saying is this worked for Jonte and for me, and
Right.
Ozzy and I did the same thing. So I'm saying we're dealing with those questions
Okay.
that you were concerned about. Here's another point. Policy and budget recommendations. So we've
Right.
got all of this in our narrative. We have a question, and then we have a conclusion.
Mhm.
So if there's a way we could just ask you, hey, you got to look at our documents and now do you want me to stop the share?
Sure, if you're done. Mhm.
Okay, yeah, I'm done. The whole point of what Scott and I are trying to do is, for example, Lanita said she's confused.
Right.
All of us were confused.
Sure.
And that's why we say document 1, document 2,
Mhm.
document 3. We walk you through the process. And the most difficult part is, what do I do with all these talking points? We
Right.
give you an example. Here's the talking point. Here are some comments you may or may not want to use. It's a guide to
Sure.
help somebody new. You know what I am, Mark, what did you think of the process when you started, when you had to go to these interviews?
Oh, we just didn't have what you used. We didn't have anything like that. So actually I didn't have too much information going
see?
in.
Mhm.
So it could be very useful to, have some
Well-
type of script.
Well, see, here's what, I'm
Go ahead.
sorry, Mark.
Go
Well,
ahead.
see, here's the whole point of what Scott and I were doing. I've listened here to Lanita, and she's saying, oh my God, what is all this stuff? And Mark, he just told you it was confusing. And I did it, and I was scratching my head, and I was the first timer. And that's why Ozzy and I started at the very beginning, because we were both new. We said, we got to do something to make this easier. This is a
Right.
shotgun approach. And so then we took that, and then Scott and I went through it, and Scott being a newbie, which is so good, is Scott could say, well, what does this mean? What does that mean? And that's why we were able to put this packet together. And hopefully it's a step-by-step to walk you through. It's a guide rail for somebody that's looking for one. If you want to
Sure.
do it a different way, go for it.
No, I'm not. I just want to make it clear that I'm not advocating there's not room for improvement to make it easier. I just want to understand what the time frame, 45 minutes, 30 minutes, or an hour, whatever it is, to make you understand that those bullets where you're talking about all the different policy brief recommendations that you're actually going to submit approval for, these individuals are voting on behalf of that. If you have time to actually get feedback from them on how they feel about those items.
Can I, Crawford, just say something here? I think, Nicole, you're exactly right. And I think that though there's 10 documents, on the day of the interview, what you're talking about in that 45-minute window is exactly what the ambassadors should be focused on, not the thank you letter or all this other stuff. We're just providing some templates.
Right.
Because, you know, I think somebody said I was a little intimidated, you know, when I was dealing with the sheriff, and I don't know who dealt with the sheriff, but in any event, there's no reason to be intimidated. What we tried to do is take the intimidation factor out of things and gives a more predictability. But you are entirely correct. On the day of the interview, oh boy, it should be boom, 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 right through it.
And I just wanted to know, like, time, like if you were to go through it, like, are you spending like 20 minutes on pillars? To me, that's the time. The time should be towards the end where you're talking about like the restorative justice and the mental health illness, or sorry, mental health,
Right.
whatever that is that you guys are focusing on for the year to get money for, that you have time to get feedback from them on those items.
Well, and to your point, because what, mental health, housing, and jobs
Right.
are right. Those are some key things that we want to see improvements on. These pillars, no, if somebody's spending a lot of time on these pillars, they're probably wasting time.
Right.
That would be valuable, but they're in here. And that's why
Sure.
I asked the question, where do these
Sure.
come from?
Right.
What does all this mean? Because if you think about, we believe that incarceration should serve as the last resort. Well, we don't deal with that. We deal with people that have been incarcerated. So what are we saying? That the judges shouldn't do their
Sure.
job? No, I wouldn't want to tell a judge how to do his job. So there was just some questions so that all of us understood it. And you know, you're very knowledgeable because you're sitting in the probation department, right?
Well, I mean, I think it might be of interest to have maybe internally have a meeting with Patrice to have her see this, because she has a lot more context than I do as well. She was on CAB, but she's also familiar with these department heads, works very closely as the director of this office.
Right.
As you guys kind of, even in the current state that it is, to see, and maybe it's just kind of putting a time to those different areas so that it's clear, like you shouldn't be spending more than 5 minutes on pillars or whatever, so that people can kind of be held accountable.
Okay, now here's the other thing too. The interview with DA Becton that I was in was different from the interview with Burgess.
Right.
They are basically the people we are asking, we are listening to them, and Burgess had a different focus than DA Becton.
Right.
And we believe that at least that guide gave us the ability to, what is it? To go with the punches, so to speak, to go with the flow. You just can't say, well, I'm spending 5 minutes on this because I got these other things to do. It doesn't work that way when you're in an interview. Because the first thing that we may want to spend 5 minutes on, doggone DA Becton may want to spend 20 minutes on.
Sure.
Then what do you do? So the whole point is you go with the flow. And Scott and I tried to take the letter, the pillars, etc. If we feel that there's too much information in that letter or pillars, then that whole letter needs to be cut down.
Right.
Maybe there's too much in it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Right.
And because that's why we had to go as long as we did.
Sure.
We had to cover the points that you gave us. And
I want to do a quick time check, Crawford. We have about 5 more minutes left, and I know that we wanted to get through next steps just to have a conversation about agenda items for next month. I don't mean to cut you off, but just wanted to highlight time check.
Okay, I'm
So, Nick,
sorry.
is that what you were going to do? It's a
Yeah.
time check?
Well,
Okay.
I just want to make sure that the other committee members have a chance to speak to this, because I feel like I kind of took some wind out of, or the oxygen out of the room on it. Lanita, did you or Mark have any response to this, or are you pretty comfortable with it, or?
I'm good. I'm listening.
I'm good.
Good.
Question, please, Scott. Might we want to send, maybe you and I can get together this week, and we'll send Mark and Lanita copies of what we've done. Now, this is just a draft. And that might help them prepare for our next meeting. It's just a
Unfortunately,
thought,
we
Scott.
can't do that, unfortunately, Crawford, because of the Brown Act. That's that
Well, wait
daisy,
a minute,
that's
what
that
if-
daisy train that Jill was talking about.
What if I send it because I'm not on this committee?
I have to get back to you on that because I think it's
Okay.
still an issue.
Okay, got it. Ah,
Sorry.
all right.
Well, okay. So in terms of the agenda, it doesn't sound like anyone wants to further discuss the talking points. So to your point, Crawford, yes, at some point this week, you and I can talk, and, or I guess we can't talk now, or?
No, Crawford can, but as far as distributing content that's going to be
Oh,
ahead of a meeting to be reviewed. I mean, I guess distributing it, if you want to give us, we can distribute to the members to review ahead of the meeting, but it'll also be part of the agenda packet
yeah, okay, got it.
for next
There's no
month.
question it's not ready for you, Nicole.
Mhm.
I mean, we're getting it there, but it's not quite there. So Crawford, I'll reach out to you and I'll put some time together for this, if that's
Okay.
fair.
Yes.
And so for the purpose of time, because I know the world's coming to an end in 4 minutes, we have one more agenda item that's, and Crawford, you were going to speak real quickly, I guess, about the diversity survey.
Ah, let me see if we can make this real quick. I talked to Alyssa Robinson. I believe that was at Supervisor, she's affiliated with Supervisor Burgess's office. And she didn't see any need for us to go to county HR or county legal, et cetera, regarding that diversity survey. What she did do was direct us to a presentation. It was on racial and ethnic data. And boy, I listened to that presentation. I listened to it twice. And let me see if I can give you some of the quick highlights. First of all, the lady is a racial justice and well-being senior strategist professional. And she talked about proper data collection is key. We talked about how we refer to people who may be Latino, and she's, by the way, Latina. And she said that Latinos are not listed under race on the US Census. And they could have to fill out the other category there. So she was just talking about the imperfections of these surveys. And I guess the bottom line and the takeaway was that categories have to be expanded. I know we had a robust discussion at our last meeting, and she basically said, you got to expand these categories to get true data. And she said that we have to continually challenge our census categories since they're not broad enough. And she made reference to people that might be Hispanic or refer to themselves as Hispanic, Latino, etc. And then she also made reference to people that we refer to themselves as African American, Black American, somebody even said Negro. So you've got all of these things. So the bottom line is go forward, do what you're doing. Don't get hung up on the current survey. And if you want to spend some time on a new survey, then you better get with some professionals like her because they could probably assist us in what some of the classification should be. And that's not all of it. I'm done.
So do we want to submit the survey as is, or do we need to put it on hold for right now?
Oh, as is, just go forward, because,
Okay.
but you know what, it's almost like we're looking, we just drag things out. Hey, go with the survey is what she
Okay.
said. So let's go with it.
Is that the consensus of the group?
Yes.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to get in the way of it, so I'm going to say yes.
Mark?
Yes,
Yeah, okay. And then sharing results, will we sharing it with this group before we share it with the full body, or how would you like to share the results? I can put it on the agenda for next month to review the results here, and then we can decide what you want to do with that, with the full body.
Oh, gosh, I just don't feel informed enough this committee, I'm not sure why this committee would be parsing this out. Wouldn't this be a full cab?
We distribute to the full cab to respond, and then we usually share it with the full body just to kind of see where we're at.
Yeah,
That's like the extent of it.
that's all I need is, I
Okay.
don't need to, yeah.
We will get that survey sent out this week, and then I don't know, I think a week, maybe we'll give people a week to fill it out. It shouldn't take very long. And it may or may not be agendized for the July meeting, full body meeting, but we can talk about that offline.
Okay,
And then I can go over next steps really quickly, if you like.
please.
Okay, so I have set here for the full cab on the general meeting on July 14th. We're going to present the talking points timeline, specifically that we want members to agendize at the August meeting, or we can wait to have that discussion. But I also have on here to submit the proposed CAB ambassador program assignments to the full body.
So, what's the question exactly though?
So the timeline we were going to ask, and that's where I was kind of getting my point, was those bullet points that talk about employment, housing, mental health, all those things. It's not this outreach committee that decides that, it's everyone.
Yeah,
And so we need everyone to weigh in on that and how we've handled that in the past, which I'm open for different process is that we've had them agendized it at the subcommittee level. So programs and services would talk about talking points, as well as the policy and budget subcommittee, and they would weigh in on it.
yeah, I think that's,
Not so much on pillars, because again, they haven't weighed on pillars, they haven't changed it, but I know that might be something that's open for discussion. But specifically the policy budget items that are bulleted, that
Oh.
lists all the areas that
Yeah.
CAB is advocating for this year.
yep, that needs to get out as quick as it can, to be
Yeah.
honest. Yeah.
So we would just highlight that we were asking for August subcommittees to agendize talking points, and we can provide further direction at a later time.
Okay,
And then we would also present the proposed CAB ambassador program assignments, and we'll fill in the gaps in real time during that agenda item.
it's gonna be a meeting.
We will also be presenting Michelle Carter as this board's this subcommittee's recommendation to fill the vacant voting member seat.
Good.
Right?
Good.
And then we'll be submitting the diversity survey requesting that full CAB respond. So those are the actions that we're asking for the July meeting.
Yes.
For the
Sounds
next
good.
outreach committee meeting on the 19th, I have our standing agenda item for membership status that we'll keep there. And then we want to review the updated support documentation for the CAB ambassador program. Does that pretty
Right.
much sum it up?
Yep.
Okay, I think that's it.
So, good. Well, listen, before we adjourn, real quickly, I have this little blue card. Scott Parsons, and it says, "You have been summoned for jury duty, sir."
Oh, no.
So I will be calling in on the 27th at 5 to find out if I'm being activated as a juror. And 28th is the agenda planning. meeting and other things.
Right.
So I hope to be there. Don't know
Okay.
that I'll be there.
I think we have the next steps clear. I think the only questions that you might, if you so choose to meet with ORJ before you add this to the agenda packet, your documents, if you want to do kind of a working session, we're open to that. I would just need to follow up with Patrice if that's what you would like to do.
Yeah, I mean, at this point,
I know you think it's not ready for ORJ, but like Monique said, we're here to support. So we don't doesn't have to look great for us to look at it and help you.
Crawford, I'm good with that, aren't you? So we'll get this thing to you, and
Yeah.
and you guys can maybe pretty it up a little bit too, you know. With but we need to keep moving.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like Scott. We need to keep moving. We can't be fooling around with this thing. Well, we got to have somebody else look at it, somebody else, because if you circle back to last year, people were confused.
Right.
We're trying to, and I participated, Mark participated, Kenya participated. It didn't go over well. So we're trying to be proactive. So I'll leave it at that.
Sure. Yeah, just let us know where I mean, obviously we have to provide some documentation for you because you don't have the contact list and all that. So just let us know where we can support you, whether that's looking at over. I want you guys to feel like you can lean on ORJ to help you. But more importantly, getting those policy brief items, input from all the different CAB members, because that's the piece that we don't have fully defined yet.
Got it.
So,
Well, Crawford and I will get something to you.
perfect.
Sooner
Yeah.
rather than later. And again, I just want to thank Monique for working with me in your absence. She was great. And I appreciate that supportive role that you guys play with us. So with that said, to adjourn this meeting, does that require any kind of a motion?
No,
Okay, can we thank you, everyone,
thank you.
for riding this through on my first meeting. Woo! I appreciate it.
Have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.